I did a partnership couple session last night, and it's was a kind of gift for a recently engaged partnership. And I wanted to just quickly talk about, since it's very fresh in my mind and alive, the benefits of getting synastry examined with using astrology charts. Why is it helpful? Well, one, it's really helpful to know your own natal chart, your own dharma, your own kind of be connected to your own mission. But when we enter into partnership, we actually have a chart that is the chart of the relationship itself, and we call this a composite chart. And it can really highlight the shared mission of the two people in the partnership when they come together and what they're co creating, you could say. And when I look at the two charts in comparison, what we call synastry reading, I'm really investigating, and really it's like going in and doing a quick surgery to see at what areas that the two combine well and where the two really chafe up against each other. If and usually in relationships, there's one or more areas where that will come up. And it's really elucidating because every time I do any of these partner readings, the people usually say something like, "Wow, the aspect I might point out and the themes connected to that, whether it's maybe they're not connecting that well emotionally, or maybe there's a disconnect in the communication, or maybe there's a disconnect in how they're building and going about implementing plans." So whatever it is, usually the people reflect back like, wow, that's actually exactly what we tend to have conflict over. And so it allows the people in the partnership to bring awareness, bring light to the area where, and specifically know in what realm they're not jiving, rather than just kind of getting triggered and then thinking you're not compatible or incompatible in a very blanketed way. This allows us to really dig into where exactly you're not blending or melding well. And then can we create a bridge? And how do we create the bridge? And so, with one of the areas, I gave them an exercise that they could do to implement communication around where they don't feel, where they feel dissimilar in their style and needs. And so it's kind of like taking inventory of these certain needs and then sharing with each other. A lot of people aren't doing this work in relationships. What happens is a lot of the time people will get into a relationship. The Venus Mars is what I say attracts people, right? And then they're in it, and a lot of the time the sexual, the attraction part, that's the easy part. Where it's hard is when you actually have to start building a life together, right? That's where Saturn comes in. That's where Jupiter comes in. That's where even like the moon is important too. Like, what are your security, emotional needs? And then how do we get both people's needs met within this sacred container? And so um, it's really beautiful to get to see these patterns and then bring them into awareness, and then people can really run with it and make revise agreements. So what usually happens though is people will get into the partnership. It's very honeymoon romantic phase, and then they're kind of in this relationship. And then people start observing where they might have a different idea about how they want to conduct certain things, or what their unique um, ways they want to feel cared for are. And they might have different triggers, and people might unconsciously trigger one another. And it's really in the healthiest relationships, they're actually looking at these things and looking at the agreements. A lot of the time, we get into relationships and aren't clear on what the agreements are because it's very vulnerable things to talk about. It's like childhood attachment styles and wounding. So we don't talk about it usually till it's too late, till we've already had like a blow up, or there's already been like a really big issue, or sometimes it doesn't get spoken of and it gets bottled up and repressed, and then the people don't understand, like they're just feeling like something's missing, right, from the connection. So ideally, in a healthy connection, we're bringing these things into awareness, we're having agreements, And those agreements can change over time because people evolve and change. Like we go through our own transits and transformations. And so when we're bringing a partnership into a priority in our life, we have to honor the life of the partnership too. And some couples will create agreements like every year, maybe check in. How are we feeling about these agreements? A lot of the time, we just assume what the agreements are, right? And that's where we get in trouble. We just assume, oh, that's my what we call boundary. The partner's gonna follow that. And then the other person didn't know that that was an agreement or it wasn't spoken of, and then it can really create a larger problem. So when we have tools like this that we can use and we can really better understand each other as individuals and then see what we create when we come together, we just have such a more expanded, expansive level of relating. And it can be really amazing what you can then co-create from that space of understanding. So if you're interested in partnership sessions, if you want to gift it to someone, it's actually really nice if you know people that are having a honeymoon, or maybe it's a reunion, or not a reunion. What's the word I'm looking for? A anniversary. A reunion could be a good, I don't know. Yeah, maybe people reunite. I've heard stories of people like high school sweethearts later reuniting. Whatever it is, or maybe it's a new work partnership. It's not exclusive to romantic relating. Maybe it's a parent child. These are what can get uncovered in sessions, and you can walk away with like a refreshed understanding of what each other's needs are. And it might have been something you never really dug very deep into, because a lot of the time, especially in special relationships, we want to just assume, like, okay, if someone's not saying something, there isn't an issue. When really, a lot of the time, we can have a need not being met and it kind of festers, right? Until, there's a bigger blow up or a bigger trigger. So, hopefully, this is helpful. I hope it inspires you to better understand yourself, firstly, and also try to bring that level of consciousness and awareness into your connections.